The impact of religion, Sufism on arts in Sudan. The audience, this is a new episode. Goes as a series of our documentaries that have been given to bring into light the impact of religion, Sufism on Sudanese arts. And since we have started this documentaries with an introductory episode followed by an episode that have presented the prominent Sudanese modern poet Muhammad Said al-Abbasi, today we have another influential and prominent Sudanese poet in our presence, Khalil Farah. So we'd like to provide and to experience the influence, the impact of religion in the writings of Khalil Farah. And for this I would like to inform that such influence and impact is so very rare in his writing in comparison with his wide fame in the country as a nationalist patriotic poet. So, and since, as I told, we try just to bring into light the impact of religion, of tasawwuf on arts, it is incumbent to see how religion is there in the writing of this notable Sudanese poet. It is incumbent at the same time, it is significant enough to say the other side of the production of this notable and the prominent Sudanese poet Khalil Farah. So as I told here, we try just to seek the way, searching for the impact, the influence of religion, of tasawwuf on the writings of this celebrated poet. So before we have his own contribution in this field, just I would like first of all to providing glimpses of his biography. So just here we have the biography of Khalil Farah. Khalil Farah, 1894-1932. He was a Sudanese singer, composer, and poet who wrote his lyrics both in Sudanese colloquial as well as in modern standard Arabic. He is considered as one of the most prominent pioneers of the early 20th century renewal in singing and poetry in Sudan. Following rising nationalist movements in the 1920s, Farah's patriotic poetry expressed his support for independence and fight against Anglo-Egyptian rule in Sudan. His songs have become symbols of national pride, freedom, and political independence. His song Azza fi Hawak, expressing love for his country in poetic terms, has been called Sudan's most popular patriotic song. Khalil Farah was born and grew up in the Nubian village of the Prusa on Sai Island in northern Sudan, in the region of Wadi Halfa, and that was in the year 1849. 1894. His father was Sheikh Farah Badri and his mother was Zahra Sheikh Muhammad. He began his education in the Quranic school Khalwa of Sheikh Ahmed Hashim on the island of Sai and received his first formal education at the government school in Dungula. Later, his family moved to Omdurman to live with his father's relatives. His father worked in trade and moved frequently between Wadi Halfa and Dungula, often accompanied by his son Khalil. Khalil attended the technical workshop for mechanical training at the Gordon Memorial College. During this time, he became a follower of the Sudanese national movement expressed, for example, by the White Flag League, and became interested in literary works of Egyptian writers such as Taha Hussein, Mahmoud Abbas al-Aggad, and Ahmed Hassan al-Zayyat, and started to write his own Arabic poetry. He joined literary forums and the Sudanese Writers Union. As his song became famous, they spread nationalistic ideas of the newly educated Sudanese classes to the largely illiterate population. Having suffered from illness since 1929, Farah had to undergo medical treatment until his early death on 3rd of June 1932. He was buried in the cemetery of Ahmad Sharfi in Omdurman. As I told shortly, Khalil Farah poetry focused on the national awakening. Unity as well during the British rule to Sudan. Farah's poetry reflects this tendency. It calls for freedom from the colonial rule, yet remains anchored in moral purity and self-transcendence. His participation in the White Flag Association and the 1924 revolution reveals how his art became a form of jihad, struggle against the colonizers, a poetic act of resistance imbued with both faith and deviance. Songs like Azza Fi Hawak and Farah's patriotic stance have been called metaphors of struggles against oppressive regimes and of the capacity of Sudanese to unite against injustice, as well as of certain positive values that are imagined as being traditional qualities of the Sudanese people. So, as we have told that he is a modern Sudanese poet, his poetry, his poetic language went directly to address national issues. For, as we know, he was born at the beginning, or he lived during the time of the earliest days and years of the British rule to Sudan, and because of this, his poetic language went directly calling the people to resist, to unite against the oppressive, against injustice. And his biography informs that a selection of his poetry was published by Sudanese poet Ali al-Makkan, that was in the year 1977. And also it has been once again republished in 1999 by Dar al-Bilad publishers in Khartoum. Farah is also the first poet presented in the 2019 anthology Modern Sudanese Poetry by the researcher and the author The translator Adil Babikir. Farah's poetic voice remains a testament to how national ideals shape Sudan's cultural resistance, renaissance, and resistance at the same time, giving birth to an art that is both deeply spiritual and profoundly human and nationalistic tendency towards freedom, liberty. The audience, I would like to reminding you that I'm presenting Sufism impact on Sudanese arts, and as I started this episode in which we try together to introduce an influential, a celebrated Sudanese poet, Khalil Farah, and as I told shortly that he is widely known as a patriotic poet. That is, he provided his life for the sake of his people, national interest, writing poetry, calling for resistance, calling for independence and unity. And as I told, the influence, the impact of religion is there also in his writing. And for this, the audience, just I would like to share you two samples and examples of his poetry in which the reader will find out, will experience how religion is there in his poetic composition. Let us start with the first example. The first example that I would like to share the audience is his line, his verse that he has written on the birthday of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him occasion. The title of the ode, The Call of Truth. So I would like just the audience, as I told, to share you part of the line that he has written on the occasion of the Prophet's birthday. Let us go. صرخة في الشرق من فرد آخر ملأ العالم دينا فاستغر وتمشى العدل في أرجائه يطأ الظلم ويمحو كل شر. يا لها من دعوة لم تثنها دولة السيف وتأليب البشر. لا وأقعده ضعف ولا فل من حده ضيق القمر ضيق المقر. لا وقعته ضعف ولا فل من حده ضيق المقر. A cry rose in the east from a noble man who filled the world with faith and it endured. Justice walked through its lands, treading down oppression, erasing every evil. So these lines from Khalil Farah poem, The Call of Truth, celebrate the spiritual and moral transformation brought about by the coming of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the final messenger and prophet. So the divine message and the prophet role in this ode, which she opens with a cry in the east symbolizing the rise of Islam through the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, call to truth and monotheism. The phrase, fill the world with faith, reflects how the Prophet's message spread widely and became firmly established. Overall, the poem praises the Prophet Muhammad mission as the universal source of justice, peace, and divine light. So in these lines, Khalil Farah praises the emergence of Allah's Messenger, our Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, who came to spread the good news of religious teachings throughout the world before passing away after establishing the foundations of the faith. Such teachings come to eradicate evil, to stand against evil. Such a religion is the religion of justice and does not permit injustice. What a message that its opponents were unable to suppress with their swords or inciting hatred. A messenger carrying his message and values, and one who is always strengthened by victory. So we go further handling and seeing between the lines the thematic meanings behind these lines of our poet Khalil Farah. And in this regard, we would like to tell justice and the defeat of evil, justice and the defeat of evil, walk through its lands. Treading down oppression signifies how the Islamic message brought fairness, compassion, and moral order, replacing tyranny and injustice. However, in these lines, Khalil uses several religious expressions that reflect the spiritual essence of Islam. And he just would like to take, for example, his stating of الشرق, the East, symbolizes the sacred birth of revelation, while Fardun Aqar, a noble man, refers to the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, the chosen messenger of God. The poet also mentioned Dinan, the face, which in fact denoting and pointing to Islam. Mala al-alam, fill the world with the divine truth and guidance and light. More words in the poem or in the lines denote religious phrases and terms. The poet speaks of al-adl, justice, walking through the earth, erasing the oppression of zulm and destroying the evil, ashar, portraying the victory of righteousness through God's law. The term al-haq, truth, in the poem title Da'wat al-haq, the call of truth, represents the divine message revealed to humanity. So the audience, this is just part of a poetic production of the renowned Sudanese poet Khalil Farah, in which we experience together a part of his impact, of his influence with religious language. Audience, here we have the second example of our renowned poet Khalil Farah, in which, as I told, The influence, the impact of religious language in his writing is so clear, is so vivid. So just here, my invitation to you, listening to the second words of the Oud. يا جميل يا نور الشقايق، يا جميل يا نور الشقايق، ما هو عارف قدم المفارق، يا محط آمال السلام في سموم الصيف لاح له بارق، لم يزل يرتاد المشارف، كان مع الأحباب نجم شارق، الضريح الفاح طيب عابق، السلام يا المهدي الإمام. So as you listen the audience in this ode, several religious and Sufi expressions enrich the composition of these lines by our poet Khalil Farah. So just to give example, the phrase محط آمالي, refuge of my hopes, points to tawakkul, trusting God, and the Sufi dependence on divine mercy. النجم الشارق, shining star, signifies the ascension of the soul toward divine truth, and at the same time pointing out to the individual praised in the poem, and as if the poet here is praising Imam al-Mahdi, the noble character among Sudanese who stands against injustice, seeking the justice for his own nation. The term الضريح, the shrine, and it is طيب عابق, طيبه العاقب, الضريح الفاح طيب عابق, السلام يا المهدي الإمام. طيب عابق, by the way, fragrant scent, represent barakah and blessing and the holiness of senates, and here referring to Imam al-Mahdi. Finally, al-Mahdi al-Imam express the spiritual leadership of this great man. So as if these lines praising Imam al-Mahdi, and here we have to take the lines in terms of praising of this hero, denoting his praising to him through his status as a religious man that has led his country to liberation from the injustice of the Turks. So the audience, this is just an example to the extent of my knowledge that I found, in which the impact, the influence of religion is there in the writing of this renowned, celebrated Sudanese poet, Khalil Farah. So this is the end of the episode. Till seeing you in another episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.